Do you ever get the sense someone is trying to take advantage of your business? Well, in this episode, we're going to talk about how to spot it and then how to respond to it.
Are you tired of the endless stream of fantasy marketing and vanity metrics? Yeah, so am I. My name is James Patrick, and I'm an internationally published photographer, media specialist, and marketing strategist. I'm also a student of professional development, and like you, I've been left frustrated by all of this influencer-driven generic advice, making us think that we are just one course, conference, or manifestation away from the life of our dreams. We need to cut through this crap and move beyond the posturing, beyond the facade, beyond the image to take real action on the real work that will create the real results. This is the Beyond the Image podcast.
What is going on? And thank you so much for tuning in to our latest episode of the Beyond the Image podcast. In this episode, I want to talk about the warning signs of someone potentially trying to take advantage of your work and your business, how to spot it, and then really what you can do to respond to it. So the first warning sign or red flag, I would say, is when someone is being deliberately vague about a project. And as much as you try to pry and get project information out of them or any details about the project from, they're really unspecific related to the project's time frame, deliverables that are being expected, uh, the complexity of the project, what is really required to make this project successful. An example of this is when you hear the phrase, this will be super quick and super easy. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the details. Don't worry about the minutia. This is going to be super quick and super simple. And if you're hearing that, but you're still not getting any details as much as you're trying, that could be a warning sign that they might try to sneak in a lot more work. Well, since you're here, can you just do this extra work that wasn't originally agreed upon or wasn't assumed to be agreed upon? And really, they're just trying to hold on to that deniability. Another warning sign is when they start blaming their past service providers. Now, this could be claims that they were given false promises or that there were unmet expectations, or this could be direct accusations where they are accusing past service providers of cheating them. I say, every other photographer I've ever hired has screwed me. Every other graphic designer I've ever worked with has just taken my money and run. I've heard this before, and spoiler alert, if you choose to work with them, they'll end up saying the same thing about you. What they make it sound like is that every time every service provider was out to get them. And yes, it does happen where people get taken advantage of, but when it's everyone taking advantage of one person, there is a common denominator. And it's probably going to be you next on the chopping block when they come to blaming you to the next service provider. Another warning sign is they find ways to delay signing or completely not sign your contract or your terms and conditions. Maybe they state that, we just need a little bit more time to review this, but let's continue working on the project while we're reviewing this. They try to rush the project forward, noting that the project is on such a time sensitivity that there is not time to review the contract or to get into the formalities. We just need to move this forward. Or they just ignore the fact that you sent them a contract altogether. And when you follow up with them for the contract, they pretend maybe they didn't get it, or they pretend, or they just ignore that they're still not receiving it. Okay. So not signing is in their mind giving them an exit plan should they decide to ghost you on the project or not fulfill their end, which means paying the invoices when they come in. Another warning sign would be when they attempt to play on your emotions. Now, I want to preface this by saying that empathy is a trait that I think we all should be looking to foster and aspiring to grow, but that empathy can be exploited. And perhaps it's a prospective client sharing a narrative of a bad past experience, or they are discussing unrelated past trauma and they're injecting it into a professional conversation when it wasn't asked for, but it's being done in a not so subtle way to try to get you to lower your rate, to try to get you to change your terms and conditions. to do them a favor because of how hard or how rough things have been for them. Um, Another one, and this one comes up fairly often, is scratch my back now. And I promise you, I assure you that eventually I'll get around to scratching your back. The most common example of this is when someone says, we have so much work coming down the pipeline. If you help us out on price now, there's going to be a lot more work in the future. To which my response is always, well, yeah, great. I look forward to that. I'm going to charge my full rate now. And then when more work comes down, that's when I'll discount the work. Another warning sign is there's an unrelated or unnamed team that all the blame continues to get pushed to. Well, I need to check with the team on that. Let me get back to you. Sorry, my team hasn't had a chance to review it yet. That's actually my team's responsibility. Oh, you know what? My team must have missed that. Actually, someone on my team messed that part up. That wasn't me. There is no team more often than not. They just don't want to be held accountable. Now, I've had almost every single one of these transpire in the last few weeks. I've had people being deliberately vague about a project. Why? Because they actually want a lot more, but they don't want the estimate to reflect all the deliverables that they actually want. So they claim that the project was a lot smaller than it was. I've had an instance of someone saying, every photographer I've ever worked with has screwed me. And I can promise that that project went through. They would say the next thing about me to whoever they came into next. I found we had a problem with a client trying to delay signing a contract or pretend they didn't get the contract after more than half a dozen follow-ups to say, we've sent you this contract. We cannot proceed until you sign this contract. Oh, I didn't notice it. Well, it was half a dozen attempts. We've had, definitely people try to play on emotions. I literally had someone try to rent my studio last week and says, we have a 2-hour minimum to rent the studio. Why? Because really every production is at least 2 hours. If it's a production that's 1 hour something, it's very shocking that a production should only be 1 hour to come in, to set up, to shoot, to break down, and to exit. Even headshot sessions, like we have a photographer in 2-3 hours. And someone came in and said, well, I got a lot of work and I'm looking for a studio to do a lot of work, but for this first one, I only need an hour. So why don't you just give me half off your normal booking and I'm just going to be in there for an hour? No, we look forward if you consider us in the future for all that work that you are claiming is in the future. We had someone try to play on our emotions recently, also rented the studio. He says, I had another studio cancel on me last minute. So can you give me a discount? I'm sorry that happened. I hope you consider our space. The price is the price. So how do we respond to this? I think first and foremost, it's be polite, because you never want to be in a position where you're giving someone ammunition that they could use against you. Oh, well, he said this. He was rude to me, or she was rude to me, or they were mean, or they were nasty, or you don't want to react at their level. So you're polite, but you are matter of fact. You are not required to go down into a rabbit hole with a prospective client. So all you have to do is refer back to the facts, the terms, the conditions, and then you can move the conversation forward. You can have clear boundaries. You're not required to deal with someone's emotional immaturity, whether it's texts or calls at inappropriate times, yelling or shouting at you when they're upset, or if they're trying to steer conversation into unrelated personal drama. You can stop them. You know what? I just need to stop you right there. It seems like we're getting off topic, and I just want to direct the conversation back to the project in hand, or the project that we're focusing on. And if they are not willing to respect your boundaries, you can exit the conversation. You can say no. When I was posting about this on Instagram, some people say, no is a complete sentence. Yes, it is. If there are a lot of red flags before project even starts, you can be guaranteed that those red flags will continue the entire length of the project and beyond. So trust your intuition. You have the right to say no to a project. You have the right to say no to a client that you are not comfortable working with. But not to me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate that you say yes to this podcast. Appreciate your 5-star reviews on the Apple Podcast app. For you sharing this podcast with a friend. Hope you have a great weekend, and we will talk to you next week. Take care.